Electric scooters have rapidly improved over a relatively short amount of time, and comparing the features on a scooter from even just a few years ago to a modern scooter is really like night and day. However, not all features that have been added by brands make a scooter better, and some of these features straight up make the experience of using a scooter worse. Conversely, some features are so great that it feels like every scooter should have them. In this video, I'll cover the best and worst features and why they either improve or hinder the experience of using an electric scooter. Let's start with the best features. Number 1, hydraulic suspension. My perception of what an electric scooter could be and how an electric scooter could feel to ride completely changed the first time I experienced the suspension of the Nami models. Good suspension can single-handedly elevate the riding experience more than just about any other single feature. Not only do you get that cushy, also satisfying squish of the suspension, but good hydraulic suspension keeps the wheels planted better than standard spring suspension, making sure that the maximum amount of power is always being put down onto the asphalt. Good hydraulic suspension also turns off-roading from a miserable, jarring experience into a floaty, flowy, buttery smooth adventure. Number 2, rear deck tail. This one might sound funny because riding platform tails are so universal now, but it wasn't always like that. Some high-speed scooters, like my 50-mile-an-hour Dualtron Victor, came with a completely flat deck, making keeping your foot on the platform when accelerating quite the feat. A good rear tail, angled properly, can unlock the ability to accelerate more quickly and ride faster as you have a solid place to rest your rear foot and to keep your body stable. Even less expensive scooters, which copied the Xiaomi 365 design with no rear tail and just a flimsy plastic fender for so many years, are now coming with great rear tails. I'm glad the industry figured this one out quickly and added them to models at every single price tier. Number 3, the horizontal thumb throttle. Older scooters basically had two throttle options for a number of years. You had your vertical thumb throttles on lower end scooters, and then you had your trigger throttles on the higher end scooters. Now, I liked trigger throttles a lot, and I still do, but I liked them so much initially because I felt like the vertical thumb throttle option was kind of imprecise. However, trigger throttles are less intuitive for most people as it's the same general action as braking. Once this third option, the horizontal thumb throttle, came out, it solved both issues and is now the most popular throttle style on mid to high-end scooters for good reason. You get a long travel distance, which gives you more precision in acceleration. It's more intuitive than a trigger throttle, and the design just feels so good to use. It's satisfying in a way that no other design is. Number 4, tubeless split rims. Tubed tires have the problem of getting flats more often, but on many scooters, a split rim makes tube changes quite a bit easier. Tubeless tires are nice because they are less prone to getting flats, and even if you do get a puncture, there are ways to patch it without having to remove the tire. However, if you do get a really bad flat on your tubeless tire that can't be easily patched, then removing the tire requires an insane amount of work and often some specialized tools. You also might have to deal with trying to pull the tire off of a hub that still has the motor in it that may or may not have a way to disconnect from the scooter. Tubeless split rims solve the issues of both tubed and tubeless tires, allowing you to pull the tire off the hub without needing to take the motor off. These aren't super common yet, but they are gaining more traction. I would love to see these implemented on at least the high-end scooters, and hopefully this feature trickles down to the mid-tier scooters as well. Number 5, safety latch style stem locks. Early folding locks were pretty awful, and as a result, most scooters seem to have some level of play and flex in the stem. Lower end locks had these tab locks that required adjusting a tiny grub screw to make sure that they were tight, and sometimes on really bad locks, the only thing keeping the lock from coming undone was a small plastic tab. Not exactly confidence inspiring. The higher end scooters tended to have these quick release style collar locks that required a lot of time and effort to lock and unlock. Then the miracle of the safety latch style lock came along. I'm not sure which brand did it first, but I first encountered it on NIU scooters and I fell in love instantly. Pretty much every scooter brand followed suit afterwards, and even high-end scooters can use this style of lock because of how solid and secure it is. This tab locks down before the lock closes, making sure that even in the case of total failure, the stem won't fold down on you. Then, when you shut the lock, the safety latch puts tension on the locking tab to keep the stem rock solid and require little to no adjustment. It's also much quicker than any other style lock, and it gives you that real satisfying click every time you lock the stem in place. Number 6, removable batteries. Removable batteries are not necessarily a new innovation. We actually saw them on very early entry-level scooters, but it has taken some time for them to make their way to mid and high-end scooters. Removable batteries feel like a no-brainer for every scooter to have for a few reasons. First, the obvious. Being able to just pull the battery out of the scooter and move that around in order to charge it instead of the whole scooter offers a ton of convenience. There are countless scenarios where being able to charge the battery in a different place than the scooter is useful. Second, being able to pull the battery out and carry it with you adds a level of security when you need to leave your scooter locked up. A scooter won't work without a battery, and with the battery also being half of the value of the scooter, a non-functional battery-less scooter won't be worth much to a thief. Third, buying a second battery will instantly double your range. Storing a battery in your backpack and doing a quick swap while you're out and about allows you to never have range anxiety. And fourth, any sort of battery issues or degradation can be taken care of very simply by buying a new battery and swapping it out. No worrying about popping your scooter open and dealing with all the wiring and any sort of complications that come with replacing a battery normally. Hopefully, removable batteries will become a more universal feature on scooters of every price because the benefits are obvious. Number 7, hydraulic disc brakes. Hydraulic disc brakes aren't some sort of revolutionary technology, but the difference between these and cable-driven mechanical brakes, as well as drum brakes, is too significant to not mention these as one of the best scooter features. Hydraulic brakes are easier to maintain, naturally adjusting to brake pad wear and being easy to bleed once you learn how to do it. The feel and control is much better with precision for small speed adjustments and the best full lockup braking. The levers are also easier to activate, only needing a finger or two to fully pull, which means you can keep more fingers on the handlebars. Scooters can get away with cable-driven brakes at the low end, but all mid to high tier scooters should have hydraulic disc brakes in my opinion. Okay, let's pivot over to what I consider the worst electric scooter features. Number 1, keyed ignition switches. I can make a whole video about completely unnecessary, ineffective security features on electric scooters, but keyed ignition is one of the worst of the bunch. This requires you to carry an extra key with you, it takes up handlebar space, and it feels horribly outdated. But I hear you saying, don't you want to make sure your scooter is safe so it doesn't get stolen? Yes, but a key is not going to prevent theft. Scooters are portable devices that can be picked up and carried away, and a thief is not going to check and is not going to care if the scooter has a keyed lock. You should always be locking your scooter up with a U-lock or a chain lock, no matter what quote-unquote security features it has. Generally, I think any sort of lock that prevents you from turning on the scooter is unnecessary and inconvenient, but if you insist on having one, then an NFC card or a coded entry are much more elegant options. Security features like an alarm or a brake lock are both unnecessary and do nothing to prevent theft on scooters that can be picked up, and they just make using a scooter more inconvenient. Number 2, deck pivot and quick release style stem locks. Let's talk about both of the worst styles of stem locks at the same time, even though they're bad for different reasons. You already heard me talk about my favorite stem lock style, and what makes that one so good is also what makes these two so bad. Let's start with what I call the deck pivot style folding lock, where the scooter folds literally in half with the pivot point on the deck of the scooter behind the wheel. I really can't find a single good reason for this style to exist. The mechanism is overly complicated, requiring some combination of levers and tabs and safety latches to be pulled on properly. You typically have to kind of straddle the deck of the scooter when the handlebars fold down, and then they can hit you in the head. The scooter gets longer when it's folded this way, making it more inconvenient to move around. And then, when the scooter's unfolded, there's typically some level of play in the folding mechanism, making the scooter feel wobbly unless you have weight on it. I can't figure out why anyone would design a scooter like this, and I'm thoroughly confused by it. The other stem lock style that I dislike, the quick release clamp style, is not quite as bad. Its major sins are that it's tedious to use and requires more effort than should be required to fold and unfold the scooter. You have to do that thing where you make small adjustments to the clamps by slowly tightening them down and then checking to see if the clamp is secure. The more quick release tabs you have, the longer this takes. Then, sometimes you feel like it's properly tightened and you get on the scooter only to realize that you need to tighten it more so the stem doesn't have any play in it. It's annoying, and as mentioned, there is a much better style that exists now. Number 3, required app integration. There is a lot of unnecessary tech integration into items that don't need it. Think about those fridges that have giant touchscreens in them for no reason. This is how I feel about scooter apps, especially the ones that require creating an account and binding the scooter to it to use the scooter properly and adjust any settings. Scooters have gotten bigger and better displays, and yet it feels like less and less can be adjusted from the scooters themselves. Some apps require you to connect the scooter and to do a full tutorial before you can take the scooter out of the lowest riding mode. Brands claim it's to protect riders, but when they make me create an account and give them my full name, birthday, address, phone number, social security number, constant access to my location, the names of all my children, and my favorite ice cream flavor, it's hard not to feel like there's some ulterior motive. Having the option to change settings on a scooter via an app can be very convenient, but stop forcing me to do it and requiring an account to use the app. Number 4, telescoping, folding, or clampless handlebars. When handlebars are done poorly, it can ruin the whole riding experience, and these 3 things are some of the worst features that handlebars can have. First, telescoping stems. These aren't inherently evil, as they can make a scooter accessible to a lot of different sizes of riders. The issue is the design that you see most of the time. Most telescoping handlebars have this flimsy design where the main stem is solidly built, and then the handlebar section is this thin tubing and often flexes when put under any sort of load. It makes the whole scooter feel flimsy. Folding handlebars have a similar issue where even the best folding bars can feel thin, and that causes the handlebars to have some play in them. Often scooters with telescoping stems will also have folding handlebars, so this effect can be doubled. Clampless handlebars, meaning ones that don't come with a standard bike-style handlebar clamp, are common on entry-level scooters, and it isn't these scooters that I have a problem with. It's when mid and high-end scooters have these that I'm annoyed. While handlebars have gotten better with time, every scooter should have the option to install your own handlebars. A set of handlebars that is wider, or has more rise, or has more sweep, or fits you better in some other way can make a huge difference in your riding experience, and having a standard handlebar clamp just makes sense for faster scooters. Number 5, crappy handlebar grips. Staying on the topic of handlebars, I can't understand why a scooter that costs thousands of dollars will come with the cheapest grips that they can find, with them sliding all over the bars and leaving imprints in your hand. Putting locking handlebar grips that stay in place would cost these brands almost nothing, and even lower end ones are a million times better than the garbage that a lot of these scooters come with. It's such a small thing that has such a large effect on the riding experience, and I wish that more brands got this right. Number 6, tubed solid rim tires. If tubeless split rim wheels are the ideal, then tubed solid rim tires would be the exact opposite, and man are these a nightmare. These are the most common on trash, e-waste, entry-level scooters, but can sometimes be found on higher-end scooters. What happens is you get a flat, which is more likely due to the tubes being more prone to pinch flats. Then you have to pull the wheel off of the scooter completely. Most scooters that have tubed tires and solid rims do not have a motor disconnect, so while the motor is still connected to the scooter, you have to get the tire off the bead, pull the old tube out, put the new one in, arrange it properly so it doesn't get twisted, get the stem valve through the hole properly, and then get the tire seated correctly again. Even with the proper tools and all the tricks in the book, this is a nightmare. I've done it exactly once and I never want to do it again. Tubed tires aren't the worst if you have split rims, but when you don't have split rims and tubed tires, you're entering territory that no scooter should ever go into. And I'll stop there for now. I could talk for days about my preferences when it comes to features and components on electric scooters, so if you want to see a deeper dive into individual components, let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.